Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood slowly in the hearing room, her posture straight and deliberate, and she lifted one single document from the pile arranged neatly before her. The words she spoke next cut through the air with quiet precision, 4 syllables that shifted the entire atmosphere in an instant. 127 non-existent operations. Stephen Miller remained seated at the witness table, his posture initially rigid as if prepared for routine questioning, yet within moments the steadiness in his features began to slip away. His eyes, usually sharp and focused during public appearances, now reflected something closer to a calculated pause, a momentary disconnection that suggested the weight of accumulated details had finally registered in a way no briefing could have anticipated. The room itself, A to T, filled with committee members, staff aides, and a handful of reporters scribbling notes, fell into an unnatural hush, the kind that occurs when facts align too perfectly to ignore. The core issue under examination involved an enormous allocation of public resources managed through the Department of Homeland Security over a 3-year span ending in early 2025. In total, $4.7 billion in federal authorizations had flowed to entities that existed primarily on registration forms and nothing more substantial. These payments, approved at the highest levels within the agency, supported supposed services ranging from logistical support to specialized consulting, yet every indicator pointed to operations that never materialized in any tangible form. No contracts delivered measurable outcomes. Thirsty. No personnel performed the described tasks, and the funds moved with a speed that defied standard oversight protocols. This situation highlighted a fundamental tension in how government resources are allocated during periods of heightened national priorities. Public funds, drawn from wages earned by everyday workers across the country, are entrusted to officials with the expectation that they will serve concrete purposes such as strengthening border security, aiding disaster response, or providing essential protections for vulnerable populations. When those expectations go unmet, the consequences ripple outward in ways that affect housing stability, medical access, and educational opportunities for millions who rely on efficient use of those contributions. Or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez approached her role in the committee with a reputation for thorough preparation, cross-referencing vast amounts of data from public databases and internal agency records to identify patterns that might otherwise remain obscured. Stephen Miller, serving in a senior capacity within the department during the relevant time frame, carried a background defined by policy implementation under pressure, often maintaining composure when faced with challenging inquiries. In this particular session, however, the contrast between methodical inquiry and mounting discomfort became increasingly evident as the proceedings advanced. The hearing had convened to review contracting practices across federal agencies, with a specific emphasis on procurement integrity at the Department of Homeland Security. Members had gathered in the wood-paneled chamber, microphones positioned at each seat, folders of supporting materials distributed in advance. The agenda listed multiple topics, yet attention converged rapidly on a single set of records once the representative from New York began presenting her findings. The March compilation of the Federal Contractor Database Cross-Reference Report served as the central reference point, its pages containing entries that painted a consistent picture across all 127 cases. She directed her initial remarks toward the witness without unnecessary elaboration. The department under your oversight directed $4.7 billion toward these registered entities, each one structured in a manner that raised immediate questions about legitimacy. Staff verification efforts revealed phone listings that connected to nothing, physical locations that corresponded to vacant parcels or generic mailbox services, and employment records indicating no payroll activity whatsoever. Did these authorizations receive your direct sign-off? And if so, what assurances existed regarding their operational validity? Miller responded with a measured tone, referencing standard verification layers built into the procurement system, processes designed to screen applicants and ensure compliance before funds are released. His words carried the weight of procedural familiarity, yet they hung in the air without addressing the specific discrepancies already outlined. Ocasio-Cortez proceeded by extracting another page from her materials, this one detailing the first example in the sequence. Consider the case labeled Horizon Protective Networks, incorporated in the early spring of 2023 and awarded $47 million shortly thereafter for purported advisory services related to threat assessment. Attempts to contact the listed operational headquarters resulted in a non-functional line. Site visits confirmed an address that led only to an unoccupied industrial space with no signage or activity. State filings contained no indication of staff hires, no revenue declarations tied to performed duties, and no evidence of equipment procurement or project deliverables. The entire transaction concluded with the money transferred and the entity effectively dissolving its visible presence. She moved to the next entry without pause, each revelation layered atop the previous one to illustrate a repeating sequence. And Sentinel Border Dynamics followed a parallel path, securing $63 million in the subsequent month for logistics coordination that never produced invoices for actual shipments or personnel logs. The registered contact details again led nowhere, and corporate documentation revealed ownership shielded behind layered trusts that provided no traceable individuals. Guardian Risk Mitigation Group appeared next in the timeline, absorbing $51 million under similar circumstances, its formation documents mirroring the others down to phrasing that suggested templated creation rather than independent development. The pattern extended through additional instances, each one unique in its nominal purpose yet identical in its lack of substance. Apex Security Ventures received funding for surveillance system evaluations yet maintained zero active projects. Vanguard Enforcement Partners handled supposed training modules with no participants ever enrolled. Fortress Logistics Consortium managed supply chain provisions without a single warehouse or delivery record. Each authorization bore the same approval markers, the same rapid timeline from registration to payout, and the same absence of follow-through documentation. As the examples accumulated, the representative introduced a comprehensive visual aid, a diagram mapping interconnections among all 127 entries. Every line traced back to one particular legal practice based in Delaware, serving as the sole point of contact for filings and agent services. Day 89 of the registrations utilized identical language in their foundational agreements, differing only in assigned titles and payment figures. Ownership structures consistently defaulted to anonymous fiduciary arrangements protected by regional privacy statutes, leaving no clear path to determine who ultimately benefited. This configuration suggested not a collection of unrelated ventures but a coordinated framework operating under multiple designations to facilitate the distribution of resources. The question now centered on accountability for the ultimate recipients. Who stood behind these arrangements, and how did the approvals align with standard safeguards intended to prevent misuse? Miller's posture shifted subtly at this juncture, his hands remaining positioned on the surface before him, while his gaze held steady on the materials presented. No immediate reply emerged, prompting the representative to place her device on the table and activate a timing function. The inquiry would be repeated once more, with the duration of any non-response noted precisely. 127 operations lacking verifiable existence received $4.7 billion in authorizations under your oversight. Identify the controlling interests. The seconds began to accumulate. At the 10-second mark, Miller's fingers adjusted slightly against the table edge, a minor movement that did not accompany any verbal contribution. Attorneys positioned nearby exchanged brief glances but offered no intervention. 20 seconds elapsed, and the representative continued her measured delivery. Transfers occurred within 2 days of each deposit, routing portions to financial centers known for discretion in the Cayman region, the British Virgin Islands, locations in Singapore, and accounts in Swiss institutions. Records of these movements existed in transaction logs accessible through interagency coordination. 30 seconds passed without interruption. Treasury oversight units had generated 43 distinct alerts concerning these exact transfers, each one highlighting characteristics associated with irregular financial activity. Career specialists in fraud detection had recommended additional scrutiny on multiple occasions. The atmosphere in the chamber grew more concentrated as the count reached 40 seconds. Miller's complexion appeared noticeably paler under the lighting, a sheen forming along his hairline that reflected the intensity of sustained attention. 50 seconds. The funds in question represented resources that could have supported tangible initiatives, such as expanding affordable residential options for families facing eviction notices or ensuring consistent medical coverage for individuals managing chronic conditions without adequate insurance. 60 seconds marked a full minute of elapsed time. Committee participants observed the proceedings with heightened focus, while members of the press adjusted their recording equipment to capture the unfolding sequence. The representative maintained her composure, advancing the presentation with additional documentation. One analysis estimated that reallocating the full amount toward verified programs might have resulted in construction or rehabilitation of 94,000 residential units across various communities, providing stability for households currently navigating overcrowded conditions or unstable leases. 70 seconds. Another projection indicated potential coverage for health-related expenses affecting 1.2 million individuals, many of whom currently forego prescriptions or routine checkups due to cost barriers. 80 seconds. Educational debt relief could have extended to 180,000 recent graduates, alleviating burdens that delay homeownership or family formation for an entire generation entering the workforce. 90 seconds. The representative referenced her own district experiences, AOC, noting instances where constituents in urban neighborhoods grapple with decisions between securing shelter and addressing basic nutritional needs, all while contributing through payroll deductions to systems that should deliver returns in the form of effective governance. 100 seconds. Miller remained in place, his breathing pattern appearing more deliberate, as if concentrating on maintaining external calm amid internal calculations. 110 seconds. The silence extended further, underscoring the absence of any explanatory framework that might clarify the flow of resources. 120 seconds. 2 complete minutes had now passed since the direct inquiry. At this stage, one of the accompanying legal representatives requested a temporary suspension to allow examination of the presented materials. The presiding officer responded promptly, noting that sufficient opportunity for review had already been afforded and that continuation was expected. 130 seconds. The representative reiterated the central query, emphasizing the need for transparency regarding beneficiaries. 140 seconds. Additional pages outlined forensic reviews indicating that the structure exhibited traits aligned with efforts to bypass standard procurement reviews and disclosure mandates. 150 seconds. The characterization from financial monitoring units described the network as displaying features consistent with systematic redirection of assets away from intended domestic applications. 160 seconds. The representative paused briefly before continuing, allowing the implications to settle across the assembled group. 170 seconds. She referenced the human dimension once more, describing scenarios where a single parent's ability to maintain employment depends on reliable transportation subsidies that never materialized because equivalent funding streams had been diverted elsewhere. 180 seconds. 3 full minutes of uninterrupted quiet had accumulated. 190 seconds. Projections extended to community infrastructure improvements, such as enhanced emergency response capabilities in underserved regions or upgrades to facilities serving elderly residents who depend on consistent support services. 200 seconds. Miller's attorneys conferred in low tones, yet no formal statement interrupted the progression. 210 seconds. The representative advanced another layer of evidence, including cross-referenced audit trails that confirm the signature authorization on each disbursement form traced directly to the witness's office. 220 seconds. 4 full minutes approached, with the room's collective focus narrowing to the witness table. 230 seconds. She outlined how legitimate contracting typically involves competitive bidding, performance milestones, and post-award verification, none of which appeared in these instances. 240 seconds. The absence of such measures raised fundamental concerns about the integrity of decision-making processes at senior levels. 250 seconds. 5 minutes of elapsed time now stood as a benchmark, during which no accounting for the recipients had been provided. 260 seconds. The representative described parallel cases from other agencies where similar lapses had triggered broader reviews, resulting in corrective actions and recoveries of misallocated amounts. 270 seconds. She noted the potential precedent this matter could establish regarding expectations for public servants handling substantial budgets. 280 seconds. The inquiry was restated with clarity, focusing on the need to disclose controlling parties. 290 seconds. Committee members exchanged glances that conveyed shared recognition of the evidentiary threshold being crossed. 300 seconds. The 5-minute mark passed, prompting the representative to announce her intent to proceed toward formal documentation of the non-response. 310 seconds. She proposed incorporating the complete database compilation, individual registration packets for all 127 entities, financial monitoring notifications, and transaction histories into the official proceedings. 320 seconds. The motion received immediate support and passage without opposition. 330 seconds. A subsequent proposal called for transmission of the assembled materials to the Department of Justice for assessment under statutes addressing improper financial practices, asset concealment, and coordinated efforts to evade regulatory frameworks. 340 seconds. That recommendation also advanced unanimously. 350 seconds. The final element involved initiating protective measures to secure connected financial holdings pending any resulting examinations. 360 seconds. 6 minutes neared completion, the accumulated duration serving as a testament to the unresolved questions at the center of the discussion. At 365 seconds precisely, the timing mechanism concluded with an audible indication. The representative elevated the initial document once more, its opening declaration visible to those present. 365 seconds elapsed without clarification regarding the destination or purpose of $4.7 billion in public allocations. She summarized the established elements, the documented existence of the entities solely on paper, the swift redirection of resources to distant financial hubs, the repeated notifications from monitoring bodies, and the direct association of approvals with the witness position. These factors together formed a record that demanded further action beyond the current session. The proceedings concluded with the gavel sounding, marking the transition from inquiry to documented referral. Miller remained in his seat momentarily, the earlier composure now replaced by a stillness that suggested processing of the full scope. In the days following, the implications extended into ongoing reviews at multiple agencies, with staff tasked to trace any recoverable portions and implement strengthened verification steps for future disbursements. The episode served as a reminder of the responsibilities tied to positions of authority over collective resources. If the careful examination of public spending and the pursuit of clear explanations resonate with your sense of how government should function, consider registering approval for this presentation through the platform's interaction features. Share your perspective in the response section on what additional details you believe should be pursued in similar examinations. And if staying informed on developments in oversight matters is important, activating updates ensures you receive notifications when related information becomes available. The sequence demonstrated how persistent review of records can bring forward details that might otherwise remain unexamined. One set of authorizations, one extended period of reflection, and one outcome that underscores the value placed on transparency when funds originate from the earnings of working individuals nationwide. The process continues, with the emphasis remaining on ensuring every allocation serves its designated role in supporting the broader public interest.